And I think we're good. So, hello everyone. My name is Winston, and I'm here with Team 12599 Overcharged, doing a small little chat, similar to what I did with Team Technova. So, unlike last time, this time I actually have a script, so I won't be blanking out, and I actually have maybe some interesting questions that aren't as generic to ask these guys. So, anyways, let's get on with it. So, I think the first thing is that do you guys want to introduce Team Overcharge?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so I guess I'll start with myself. My name is Parthiv. I'm the captain of Team 12599 Overcharged. This is my 5th year in FTC. I've been here since we started the team in Relic Recovery. And I feel like we've grown a lot as a team, especially with our techniques and how we approach building, designing, and programming. And I feel like we're ready for this season. We're kind of excited for states just to see how that goes, and also some of the off-season events that are happening this year. You have anything you want to add?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm Fiona. This is my 4th year on the team. I joined in the Rover Ruckus season, and during the past 4 years, especially with the pandemic, a lot of stuff has changed in our team. And this year, I think we've learned a lot from last year being very primarily online. And so this year we've learned some new things about working with our team. And so we're looking forward to implementing that into the season.
All right, and from my knowledge, you guys actually descend from a pretty legendary team, right? 13 Hotwired Robotics.
Yeah, so my brother was on Hotwired. He was not sure what his role was exactly, but I remember that he did some CAD, he did some scouting, video editing, stuff like that. And whatever experiences he had from Hotwired, whatever things that he took from it and learned throughout his journey in FTC and Hotwired, he brought it to Overcharged and made sure that we had just a great team and good team bonding and everything.
So does that kind of legacy of that of having such a legendary team kind of affect how you want to be seen by other teams?
I would say there is some pressure in knowing that they did so well, but also it's kind of it sets a goal for ourselves, knowing that it's not impossible to get to where they were as well. So as long as we try hard enough, we work and spend as much time as we can on our robot and on our team, that we can probably get somewhere close to where they were as well.
All right, cool. So about this season, we know that the 2021-2022 Freight Frenzy season is a really weird season for FTC. So what are your general thoughts about it? Maybe specifically about the robot game this season.
I feel like it's really similar to Rover Ruckus, and a lot of the design archetypes are really similar to Rover Ruckus because you have the regular intake, the angled slides and stuff like that, right? But there are always these unique teams that come up with designs turret slides or the dual intake, side deposit, these type of stuff. And just to see how First has incorporated this new 13x13 base stuff and making the robots a lot smaller. It seems a little bit different than different seasons, and I'm all for it. I feel First imposing different design challenges rather than how are we supposed to fit stuff in 18x18 and making a preset base before every season. I feel them incorporating this new smaller design is a lot better and makes things a lot more fun and interesting.
Yeah, you actually bring up a really good point there. I think the last time First has tried, setting limits were mostly, the first time was on weight, right? I think it was Rover Ruckus?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rover Ruckus, they had the 42-pound weight limit, and then in Skystone they imposed not not directly, but it gave you an advantage if you had your robot under that 14-inch.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly this year they decided to go on the kind of the constraint that a lot of teams have challenged like have found challenging to try and overcome, which is reducing the weight. Just because a lot of robots, they can kind of live with being lighter or being shorter, but it's much more difficult trying to compact either the width or length to be 18. So yeah. And how has this season affected how how your team has performed? Because once again, like, this season's also weird in that we are coming out of a major global pandemic. So how has that affected like how your team has been able to work through the season?
Well, I think the biggest change was to our team structure and how we incorporate different team members and like different aspects of our team. Especially at the beginning of the season, we had a lot of trouble like getting everyone to come and work in person because everyone was used to having Zoom online meetings. And so from there, we had to like encourage team members to come learn so that they can actually get involved in our robot. So that's one thing that has really changed this season. But I think now that we're like pretty close to the end of the season, we've learned a lot and we've able to like incorporate all of our team members while building and doing other aspects as well.
All right, cool. So now moving on to the robot side of things, I think certainly the latest robot that you posted, which includes your robot reveal video, it's like really sleek. Like, I honestly really like the robot design. It looks hella fire. So I just wanted to ask, like, what was the how did you design your robot? Because I think I heard when I talked to you guys during qualifying, you guys said that like a lot of this robot was manufactured. It wasn't like a process where like you kind of built it from scratch and then you kept on improving it. It sounded like because you guys had another robot competing in league meets, and it wasn't until qualifying tournament that you actually had this robot. So could you talk more about that?
Yeah, so it started with our first robot in the beginning of the season. It was like this huge, like 18 by 18, like 6-wheel drive base. And this is like the same stuff that we bring to like every season. We have like the pre-built drive base and we just go with it and see how the season goes. And then just change up the design based on like what we see. And with that robot, we realized that we needed a lot more reach with our deposit. And just having that really big robot is terrible for maneuverability. So with that in mind and looking at like current design metas all around the world, I decided that like we had to switch to a smaller base, like the smaller mechanism to be exact, and that would give us like the maneuverability advantage. And then in addition, I also increased the angle of the slides, or like decrease it, I guess, but making it a lot more steep so we get more reach. And then lastly, like the third little part that I noticed from our intaking system specifically is that sometimes it gets stuck in the intake, or it takes a lot of time to like intake an actual piece of freight. And like with that, we had like the newer like super fast intake with like the different noodles and stuff like that. So I mean, like if you're noticing us like driving around the field, you see us like just quickly run into the warehouse and run out almost instantly, because the intake has like a little bit of range, but also enough traction and speed to quickly collect. And the actual like manufacturing, as you said, all of it was like CADed and then sent to send to laser cut the parts. And it was really just one like CADed version of the robot, and then we just built it and went with it. And I guess it sort of like worked for us. One of like the smaller like design changes that we found on the way while actually building was the switch of our slides. So initially this robot was designed for the BWT link slides, and in concept those are like great, right? They're super thin, they're able to stack directly on each other. They didn't need like any fillers or any like, you see those like red 3D printed pieces, like we wouldn't need those, and it would be like a lot thinner. We could get like 3 stages and whatever, right? But when those slides arrived and like we actually tried them, they weren't that good for us, and we found that like it just didn't really work. So we switched over to the Misumis, and I had to go over and like drill some extra holes on our slides. So that's the one drawback with like CADing the entire robot and then like manufacturing it, is because like if those like small design issues happen, then you're gonna need to figure it out and like see
Yeah,
how to
it's
do
like
it.
hard to try and make, because like once you CAD it and
Mhm.
you had it manufactured, it's really hard to try and change those things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And like I feel like that's where we're a little bit more privileged because we have like that entire garage filled with like machinery, like the CNC, drill press, all sorts of things, right? And I feel like if there was like an issue to happen to a team, we're probably like the best fit to alter it because we have like everything that we need.
You
Okay.
should see his CAD sometime though. It's really impressive.
Oh, like the actual rendering of the robot?
Yeah, the one with like the entire robot.
Yeah.
You've only shown me the drivetrain.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think, yeah.
It's a secret.
Yeah. So I think going more towards like all of the CADing stuff actually, like what was your entire process behind that? Because once again, like with like having to send out these CAD designs to like an actual manufacturer and for them to like machine those parts, like you kind of have to get it right on the first try. It's not like, you know, you mess up a little bit, you can, you know, make the part in-house again. Like, you know, you have to get it right the first time or else you kind of spend a lot of time and resources on something that isn't desirable. So like, how did you go about through your CAD making sure that all of the things were basically right the first time?
Yeah, so I feel like the biggest part with this is talking to other teams and getting some information on that. So this year, I'm not sure if like anyone recognized, but usually Overcharge has been like a chain team. We use chains for everything, but this year we don't use a single chain. We use belts everywhere, and this transition I'm like really happy about because belts, first of all, they're like they have no backlash when you're powering different things. For example, like intakes or like arms, stuff like that. Having chain for those specific parts, it's gonna be like a little bit worse. But having a perfectly tensioned belt, those don't have any backlash, and it's just like a lot cooler to design, right? And specifically for belts, I had to check with like a lot of like the people on the Discord and like Reddit or like online anywhere, and talking to teams certainly helps a lot with the design. And like a smaller aspect of it is just CADing the robot down to the screw. So we'll need to make sure that like everything fits, everything's perfect. You know, if you don't want to have like some ambitious design idea, go back to something that's like simpler and more like reliable, which is like why we have such a simple robot as opposed to like the crazy ideas that other teams have. Yeah.
So how many hours do you think you've spent CADing the entire robot?
Certainly a lot. Because during my first semester of senior year, like the entire semester I had a CAD class like in school. So every other day, 1.5 hours was spent on this, and then after school every day almost I think from September all the way till like just before December it started. I made 2 versions of the robot. The first one was a 6-wheel with like vertical, horizontal slides, like really like long extension and whatever, and like I decided, you know what, like a 6-wheel is not the move this year. We should stick with a mechanism, make it smaller, whatever. And then I ended up redesigning from my initial redesign. So it was just like a lot of CAD. But the thing is that like spending that much time in CAD really like pays off because when you start building it, you basically have like the Lego flip book like assembly guide. Like you have everything like there for you.
Yeah.
So I feel like CAD is perfect for that kind of sense.
And what program did you use for your CADing?
I use Fusion 360, but I've also noticed that like Fusion is sometimes a little bit bad. So I feel like going forward,
Like on what parts?
Like I feel like opening bigger files. Like the CAD file that I have right now is like huge, and it takes like a lot of time to like save files and like open them, and then doing some rendering. Like it takes so much effort for that, and like really strains my CPU and whatever. So I feel like going forward, a great idea for Overcharged would be to try out Onshape, because I know I personally like going from Fusion to Onshape. It was horrible for some reason because like I just couldn't figure it out. But I feel like if members are starting out CADing with Onshape, it might have been just like a much better experience than switching from Fusion to Onshape.
I think like Fusion's a cloud-based system,
Mm-hmm.
but like I think the benefits with like Fusion is that when it's cloud based, then it's like relatively easy to like have others collaborate on
Yeah.
different projects. And then I think also like it has a bunch of like inbuilt tools. Like it has its own cam, I think,
Mhm.
for like CNC stuff. And yeah, so like I personally haven't had any experience with Onshape, so I'm not too sure how it compares with Fusion.
Mhm.
But yeah. And also, I think the other thing to notice about your robot is that it's really fast. Like everything about it is like really fast, from the collection, the delivery, to the drivetrain itself. So do you want to talk a little bit about your robot's speediness?
I can talk about the drivetrain, and then Fiona, you can mention like the intaking sensors and whatever. But specifically the drivetrain, this year we, like, because we had the benefit of using Senkan, we're finally able to pocket a robot. So you can see like all the pocketing on the sides and whatever. And with that, we're able to cut down a lot of the weight, making our robot like around 25 pounds, which is like a lot lighter than it's been previous seasons. And in addition, besides having like the lighter robot, we've also used the 19.2 motors, and we know a lot of teams like using the 13.7s, but with this we're able to get like almost the same speed, if not we're able to be faster. I still don't know why to this day we're faster than the 13.7 teams, but I just get the feeling that like we have a lot better acceleration with the higher torque motors, and I don't know, it's just been working out great for us. We might consider switching, but then again, like I'm not too sure how it would pan out for us.
Do you guys use a ratio on, because you use timing belts to drive your drivetrain, right?
Yeah.
Do you guys use a ratio on those timing belts?
No, it's just 1-to-1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what he was mentioning about the intake, like besides just driving quickly and having good drivers, we also have like the sensor in our intake cup, which means that we can like automate going into the warehouse, intaking, and coming like immediately out, not having to like check if we intake something or not, because we know that once we have intake something, it'll automatically lock and like raise arm for us, which makes it also easier on the driver. And it's also something we can use in auto to get more cycles.
All right, and actually, speaking of making it easier on the drivers, drivers. So, like, I know that you guys have had, like, from what I've heard, you guys have, like, a somewhat pretty intense, like, driver training. And you guys do have some pretty good drivers, as evident in the prior QTs. So, I think there's, like, a lot of people don't truly understand the importance of having like a good drive team, and like, you know, what actually goes into creating a drive team that works well. Being a former driver myself, like, how have you guys like designed the robot with considerations to the drivers, if you have?
Specifically robot design, I feel like it's just making everything like simpler, and just like making it so that like drivers have like less to focus on, and like same with like programmers as well, right? Like with the more complicated mechanisms, programmers would spend a lot more time like trying to automate it for drivers, and I feel like our automations are like really minimal. The only automation we have really is just the intaking system. Like when our intake is running and we collect a piece of freight, it'll lock on the cup, outtake, and lift up the arm. And that's like literally the only automation we have. The rest is just us focusing on driving and the actual like drive base itself. We have, well, I've had lots of practice with the 6-wheel, which is why you see me like almost never strafe in driving the mechanism. I really need to get used to strafing, but I don't know, I just never do it. And I feel like a lot of that practice came from when Advaith was just like drilling like crazy on alignment practice in Skystone. That was like, it was really tough using a 6-wheel that year. I feel like we were one of the very few teams. I know that Data Force used a 6-wheel, but they also had like
They had the arm.
Yeah,
which made it easier for them.
But like we had a 6-wheel and like an arm that only went out in one direction. So like it was, I don't know. I feel like that year would have been a better year to use mechanism, but we ended up sticking with 6-wheel and it somehow worked, I guess. But I feel like that experience for that whole season like definitely helped me become a better driver.
Yeah, besides that, also just like talking about strategy, together, like as a drive team. Like there might be certain strategies we use with specific alliances or against specific teams, and so that we like practice those strategies, and then once we're at the actual competition, like we can see who our partner is, who we're going against, and then like choose how we want to approach the game. And like having practiced that before also makes it a lot easier.
All right, and then so when you guys are considering like how you program the robot, such as like what controls on the controllers, like what action it does, like what considerations do you have for the drivers when you're doing all that programming?
I would say the biggest is like based on you guys and like preference. Sometimes we'll like program it one way and then they'll be practicing and see like it doesn't work for them. So then we'll like go back and change it to like maybe a different button or like a different configuration to make it work better.
And like in addition to that, I just get the feeling that like with years of driving practice, it's just like we kind of know which buttons to put where and like what actions to put where. Like for example, like the slides, like putting on the D-pads, like we've always done that for a really long time, and it just feels like natural to have like one side of the hand do like one action and then making sure like you save some like more just making sure that like you're efficiently placing the buttons. We've just had experience with that, and that's like a crucial part of driving, so that like it's easier for drivers to focus on just the game instead of like which buttons to click.
Do you have like any buttons which like have like do a like set something to be like go up to one thing or like go up to another level, such as an example for like the linear slides? Do you have like press this button, it goes up to one level, press another button, it goes to another level, and then press another button, it resets everything? Like do you have like buttons like that?
We just have like different levels. So if you press like one button on the D-pad, it goes to the first level. There's another button for like the second level, one for the third, and then one that just goes all the way back down.
Oh, so do you guys use a system where like you press like you hold down one button and then you press another button?
Well, for our slides, we use PID, so we just press one button and it goes up to position and just stays there until like the driver decides to go to like different position, usually like back down to like the intaking position, and then I'll just press the down button to go all the way down.
Okay. And like so like for drivers, because like I know a lot of it is like muscle memory, like if you make buttons intuitive, then like drivers are able to much more easily like remember which buttons to press. And also like it depends on like where you actually like put those buttons on, because like sometimes you don't want to like have super awkward button positioning, because like you're naturally gonna want to grip the controllers one way, and usually you have your thumbs fumbling around with the joysticks, and then your other fingers are usually relegated to like pressing the other buttons. So like what I'm trying to get here is like, are there like any examples where like you kind of have like a set of controls on the controller that kind of allow the drivers to basically get into a rhythm?
I feel like this applies to mainly arm driving, because we have a button for bringing the slides up, as Fiona mentioned, and then a button for bringing the arm out, and then waiting for the deposit to actually happen, and then bring the arm back to the inner position and then slides down. So like we have like a sort of like sequence, I guess, and Aarav is just like standing over there. I feel like it would be better for him to explain this. So
Do you want to jump in? Come ahead. I mean, like,
Should we get another chair?
should we get another chair?
Wow.
Okay, hold up. Alright, cool. Alright, so we've actually added another member of Overcharged to this little talk. So do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
My name's Aarav. I'm a senior and I'm one of the arm drivers. I'm the arm driver for this team.
Alright, so where were we again?
Oh yeah, we're talking about like the sequences.
Sequences.
Okay. Yes. So I think one of the things is if we're going for like the Alliance specific shipping hub, the more we do it, like it's more muscle memory, because it's just I'm pressing one button for the D-pad to raise it, to slide up, and then another button to bring the arm out. So it's kind of just like that, and it becomes muscle memory the more you get into the game. And then it's more like if we go to shared, it's a different button. So kind of just trying to remember which is which and going with it. And that kind of comes more with like practice, which we do a lot of driver practice.
And on the topic of driver practice, like about how much driver practice do you guys have?
I'd say it's like 3 or 4 times a week, like between for the last 3 weeks of the competition before the competition.
Okay. So, what are some like key points of having like a good drive team? Because like, a drive team consists of your drive coach and your two drivers usually. So like, what's kind of like the relationship? Yeah, like what's the relationship that each person on the drive team like has with each other, and like what are some good skills in maintaining like a good drive team?
So I feel like aside from having like good robot performance, because that's like an obvious point, right? I
Like
feel
a
like
good robot
yeah
design.
like the synergy between the team, for example, like between me and Aarav when we're driving, we rarely ever have to communicate, and that's just because we spend a lot of time practicing. We know like what the robot is doing at different stages of its like cycling and whatever, and like I feel like having good synergy between the drivers is perfect, and it's like ideal for a good drive team. And in addition, just like strategizing, being able to think on the spot, knowing what to do. I feel like having a good drive team can definitely like at a certain extent it can be better than having like a great auto, for example, or like it can like sort of like counter it, I guess, because if you're able to think on the spot, if you're able to drive the robot well, and like not have to communicate within your team but between like the two different teams on the alliance, I feel like that is like the ideal alliance, I would say.
And like kind of going off that synergy, the more you practice, like the more you're gonna understand your drive partner, because when he's doing something, I kind of can already tell what he's gonna do, or vice versa. So it should kind of just be the drive coach, like guiding you, if anything goes wrong.
Yeah, building off of that, like as a drive coach, what I try to do is like make it easier on them. They just focus on their game and like focus on like their cooperation between each other. And then so my role will be more like talking to the other team, making sure they're like out of the way, we don't crash into each other, and they're like doing the things that we can't. So then like we can balance each other out. And so I try to like talk to the other team while they're focusing on our robot specifically.
And also, like, I would assume you would be, for the drive coach, you would be like the person who's also calling out the times as well,
yeah,
right? Yeah. I mean, you can get like kind of tunnel visioned as a driver when you're like in the rhythm of, cycling. So I think it's important for like the drive coach to like be there for like the situational awareness of the timing of the matches. So then, talking a little bit about strategy, you guys actually had like a pretty good strategy at the Oregon Silicon Forest qualifying tournament when you were paired up with Team 12808 Revamped, and that was where you guys were feeding Revamped, and I think like feeding the feeding strategy is something that like isn't, it's not like a revolutionary concept. I'm sure there have been a lot of people who have thought of it before. Like I know like that like this feeding concept had been like floating around a little bit during the Skystone year, just because like you had to have that one robot run so far away to get another stone. So there were ideas of having just having one robot be super fast, delivering back and forth. So like, how did you guys like kind of come about implementing the strategy? Like, did you specifically design your robot with that in mind, or was this kind of like, hey, our robot is like kind of good at this delivery thing, maybe we should try it?
Yeah, so the way we came up with that strategy was just during driver practice with Revamped. Like we spent a lot of time practicing with each other, against each other and everything, and that's like one of the better parts of having a sister team. Like the way that we came about it was when we were practicing with them, we noticed that like our driving was like significantly better than theirs, and like we were able to score like yeah, no, like I feel like especially in shared, we were just doing like way better than them at like one point, and we realized that like it's just not optimized for the game to have 20 on the shared and like 12 on the top. Like that's just like not optimal, right? So what we realized is that like at some point there's a chance that we're going to be like winning the shared by like a huge margin. So from that, we would just start feeding for them. And like our robot is like as fast as them, so like I feel like the actual speed wouldn't make a difference, but we're able to intake fast, deposit fast, and at the same time, like they could be like overloaded with like the amount of freight they have to intake. So then while they have like 2 or like 3 cubes or blocks or whatever to intake, we would go over and score some more shared and then come back to them. And I feel like this strategy only works at like a certain level of competition. And when we get past the more like advanced stages, or like when we're playing like teams that like scored way too much on the shared and like they're winning by a lot, I feel like at that point this strategy will definitely not be viable. But I feel like at this stage of competition, us using the strategy was like basically perfect.
I think like I feel like that kind of strategy would depend like who you're partnered with, because it might work great with like some pairings, but with other pairings it might not be as like good, just because like once again you guys do have a really fast robot, and not only is it fast with the drivetrain, but it's also just fast in how fast you can intake and then basically spit it back out, just because you have like a relatively like quick way of delivering the cube, so, or freight and cargo. So I think like the strategy of kind of like feeding other robots is very specific to certain alliance pairings. But like in your thoughts, do you think like this kind of play could appear more at the world level? Because a lot of robots at the world level, like it's kind of not like, if you want to be top tier at the world's level, like you can't just be a jack of all trades but a master of none. Like you kind of like sometimes if you want to get picked in one of the alliances, you kind of have to find like your niche in somewhere. So do you think that this strategy might be something that appears in like the world level, despite you saying that like it might not be as viable in higher level competitions?
Yeah, so I just get the feeling that like the general like design of more robots is gonna like gravitate toward the more like complicated designs. For example, like the designs where like teams don't have to like turn the robot when they're driving, right? For example, like technical difficulties, they're just driving forward and back for like their tally up period because they have like the side deposit, or like
Up a creek?
not up a creek.
They have the arm though.
Oh, well, Upper Creek, yeah, I suppose, but like they still do move around the field a little bit because they have to move around. But
I think it was Sushi Squad up in Washington.
Oh yeah,
right?
Sushi Squad as well. Yeah, they were just going back and forth with like their turret arm and whatever, and like those type of robots, they're gonna be cycling really fast to a point where like that's just not gonna help them at all. And like in addition, the time of them being outside the warehouse is gonna be really minimal. But I feel like with a team like, or like design archetypes like us in Revamped, where we're actually having to like drive around the field, for like those type of robots, it would be like really helpful for feeding, because then we wouldn't have to like drive into the warehouse, spend some time intaking, drive out of the warehouse and like align and whatever. But yeah, I feel like if there are teams like going towards like our type of design archetypes, it could be viable. But I mean, considering it's the world level, and like considering it's like the top level of teams, I guess it's gonna be probably minimal, but there is a chance, I guess.
Right. And on like developing like, or on like having strategies for each match, because of course like this kind of feeding strategy, like it's not applicable to everyone, but I think like what's more applicable is like how you communicate with your alliance partner on like certain strategies. So like when you are paired with like another alliance partner that you might not have like long relationships with, maybe like they're a rookie team that they just started out this year and they're not as familiar with FTC in general, like how do you communicate like your strategy if like you want to have like a strategy to like have both teams follow that strategy? Like how do you communicate that strategy with the other team, both before before the match and during the match?
I would say most of that comes from before the match, like asking what they can do and what they're good at. And so, for example, let's say they're pretty consistent in duck. Knowing that, we could like put them in charge of doing duck during tally ops, and then we can focus on either cycling more or also capping. And so this is like what we try to do before, and we'll also try to like run our autos together, make sure we don't crash into each other. So that's what we try to do before the match, and then when we're actually playing, like things can get changed up a bit. Maybe something breaks, or like maybe we need to focus more on the shared hub because our opponents are doing really well or something like that. Then that's kind of like on the spot. We just like talk to them, like, can you keep cycling while we do this? And so we just try to like cooperate with them. Like in the match, sometimes we'll ask them to get out the way so we can like go into the warehouse or anything. But usually we try to come up with a strategy or a plan beforehand, and then we implement it during the match.
And like, what happens if like maybe like their autonomous doesn't fit with like your strategy? Like, you know, what, or like there's some other conflict with how they want to like play their match. Like, how do you resolve that?
Yeah, this kind of happens a lot. But basically, what we've concluded the best options are first is to try to like get a practice field and like before the match like run it with them and see if it works. And then if it doesn't work, our options are we can either delay our program or they can delay theirs to see if we can like fit it into one another so we don't crash like at the hub or something. And if that still doesn't work, then we'll have to like weigh our options and decide whether it's worth it for one team just to not run their auto and to have one team like get all the points they can. And this way, like, we won't have a situation where we both crash and we're both unable to score.
And speaking about like, you know, crashing robots, so occasionally like, you know, you might have matches where your strategy might not go as planned. Let's say qualifying tournament finals match number 3. So like in a situation when that happens, just like what, because as a driver you're pumped up with adrenaline and everything moves so fast, you only have 2 minutes during teleop period to you know, try and get as many points or score as many points as possible. Like when things do go awry and break kind of like the rhythm that you guys are in, like how do you handle that?
I feel like the way that we handled it during finals 3 was like terribly because I feel like personally for me in Oregon I've always thought that like defense like never happens, right? And like that was like a really like unexpected outcome and like a great call from the opposing alliance because like definitely caught me off guard. But I feel like now that it's happened, we're a little bit better prepared for it, and I feel like the best way to approach it is just to be as like offensive as possible because we have like one of the faster robots, right? We're able to score a lot more, and I feel like just being caught up in the defense is definitely not the best way to go about like handling situations like that, and just try to score as like much as possible, right? So if that means going over the barrier, because like obviously the robot's designed to do that, right? Going over the barrier, fine, we'll have to do that, or like going around the robot, then I guess we'd have to do that. I guess it's just like a matter of coping and like moving forward. But I guess like I just wasn't able to think about that on the spot. Yeah, it just like definitely caught me off guard, but yeah, I guess it's just being like as offensive as possible. It's like something that we're not used to because we're usually like the team that has like the 6-wheel, like the swerve, whatever, like the tankier drivetrains. We rarely ever get played defense on, but this year we have a Mechanim, like the first Mechanim that we've ever had in all of Overcharged, and it's best to play a Mechanim as a Mechanim and not like a 6-wheel. So yeah, that's something that I had to learn from that match specifically, and hopefully better handle in future situations.
Kind of going off that, I wasn't expecting that either. So kind of just followed him, and he started driving the Mechanim as a 6-wheel. Definitely stuff to learn from there.
Yeah.
So like with the like coping part, like do you have any advice for like how to like cope in that kind of situation? I don't know.
I'd say like practice like, scenarios in your driver practice. Like just assume the worst. You can't just do the easiest stuff in your driver practice. You have to prepare for the worst. That way in competition you can handle it.
For example, like putting a big block covering the gap if you are like a robot that goes through the gap, and having to just go over the barrier and cycle. Like that's like one great way of practicing that. And another way, like these are all like things that like Advaith teaches to us, right? Advaith, for people who may not know, is my brother. He's the founding captain of Overcharged, and he's the one who's like taught a lot of the driving strategies and everything. And I feel like the way that he would go about it is just making these impossible situations that you just can't do. For example, like blocking the gap, blocking direct access to the shared hub, like blocking the alliance hub, like doing all sorts of like crazy things, and just figuring out what to do, right? Like the best way to like handle situations like that in the tournament is doing it in the like practice field itself and like driving practice and whatever, right? So I feel like just setting yourself up for these like what you would say unrealistic or impossible situations is the best way to like handle defensive plays or plays that are actually unexpected. And I feel like I have learned a lot from things like that, but I guess like as anyone does, I still do have like lots more to learn.
And what about like mentally? Like how could you prepare yourself mentally as a driver in case of these situations?
I feel like it's hard to like mentally prepare for situations like that, but I feel like while in the moment, it's, you know, like teams do have strategies, and like you just have to like accept that it is another strategy and you just have to move forward with it. And like thinking on the spot of like the perfect situation and like the best way to like the solution to it, right? You can't like figure out the solution on the spot. It's really hard to do that, and you just have to like accept it and just like do whatever you possibly can and like best play the scenario like as best as you can. And instead of like going back and like reflecting on it and being like, oh shit, I could have done this instead, or like, you know, like I would have been a lot better off doing this, it's just good to like accept with what you were doing and just learn how to like play that in the future.
Yeah, like kind of going off the mentally prepared thing, kind of if that does happen, stick with what you know, do what you can, and like experience is the best way is from experience, but obviously you only get that opportunity once a year. Like, kind of just going off what you can do. Don't worry about what you missed.
And this can also apply to like if something happens with your robot itself, maybe like a mechanical failure or something goes wrong. Like these are quote unquote coping like lessons that you can also apply to that as well, right?
Yeah. It's like the same thing basically.
All right. So that is most of my like specific questions I was going to ask you. So I think maybe another thing I'll ask is what is, you know, a moment, because all of you guys are part of the drive team, right?
Yeah.
What is like your most favorite moment throughout you guys competing in FTC? Because I know you guys have gone to Worlds like 2 times?
Yeah, twice.
Yeah, twice. So, I mean, maybe an experience from there or an experience from somewhere else during your FTC career.
One that stuck like really hard to me was, I think it was Robotics, which was my first season. I can't remember like which competition exactly, but it was like the finals. It was the last match. I think we were like tied with the other alliance, so it was like 1-1. We're playing our last match, and during that match, our alliance like broke. They couldn't really do anything, and so just 1v2. We were like still trying our best and like doing whatever we could. And like at the end, we kind of lost hope. We didn't really think we had a chance to like win that last match. But I remember when like the results came out, I think we won by like 2 points because of like an accident where we pushed in a block into like the depot like on accident. And so that really stuck with me, and it was like just really cool to experience, especially like with your team. Everyone's like screaming and like super happy. It was just like a cool experience.
Yeah, and I say something else. From like a driving perspective, my first year I had to go against 2017 Redneck Robotics. Right?
Oh.
They were crazy, right?
Those was that drivers, Worlds?
No, I was talking about specifically Super Regionals.
Oh,
right?
Super Regionals.
So this was like a complete shit show. We got like tipped over and everything, right? But I feel like going through that experience and driving against like the best of the best, like defense, 6-wheel, like they're arguably like the best defensive team in all of FTC, like forever, right? There's no one who's going to be able to compete with them, and that's like a fact. And I feel like having to play against that, and just getting the defense like dealt on by Redneck Robotics. I feel like driving against them surely helped me like a lot, and like learn a lot, and like better prepare, because that was like my first year ever driving, right? My first year of FTC.
Yeah.
All of that, it shaped me to become like a much better driver, and I feel like that's definitely a core memory in FTC that I have.
For me, so I was with a different team for Robotics and Skystone. So Ultimate Goal was my first year with this team. But I think just MTI in general, kind of being able to see other teams compete at the highest level, and then the other stuff I was able to learn from them. Because with my old team, it was a good day if like the robot turned on. So it's a good experience.
Hey, and is there any other things like you want to cover or talk about?
I don't think so, do you?
I don't think I have anything right now either.
All right. So finally, then, like for all those rookie teams, or all those people who are considering first, or like other FTC teams, like what would be your advice to them?
I feel like first is something that you can learn lots from. For myself specifically, public speaking and gaining confidence when talking to different people, and networking skills. And like I just feel like you can learn so much from first and like FTC, and like it's definitely one of like the best things you can do while in high school or middle school or whatever. And like as per like resources, I guess being involved in the community is a huge thing, like the Discord or Reddit or all sorts of like social media channels, and talking to one another, because like you'll realize that like there are actually people in FTC, and it's not just like a competition, right? It's like an actual like, community, right? And being able to talk to them a lot, and about competition, and like about like other random things, I feel like it's been a great part for me specifically, and I definitely recommend it to other people.
I was also going to say something about like building confidence through first in FTC, because when I joined, I like didn't talk. Like I wouldn't even talk to my team members. And so I think like being on this team for 4 years has really like changed that about me. Like I've gotten a lot more comfortable just like talking to people in general, and also presenting at like first fair, or like just in front of a couple other teams. And I think that's like the biggest thing I've taken away from FTC, besides like learning how to build, program, and all of those like the technical aspects. I think honestly the most valuable thing I've taken away is building more confidence and being able to like speak and like share my ideas when I have them, and not being super shy. And that's something that's gonna like stick with me for the rest of my life. So I think that's something I'm really grateful that I learned here.
I think for me, I'd say it's like, don't feel afraid that you have to know anything to get started. You can know absolutely nothing, and it can be a huge learning environment for you. Like, I never touched metal parts or anything before I joined FTC, and kind of the people, the leaders of the team that you join are going to be more than willing to help you out, and they want to see you succeed after they leave.
All right, so once again, this was team 12599 Overcharged, or should I say 12808 Overcharged? Sorry. Anyways, yeah, this is Overcharged. Thank you so much, guys, for taking the time out of your days to come talk with me. And I guess somewhere on the screen, I'll put a link to my last talk, which was with team 12611 Technova. So if you want to go hear more about another team's experience, you can go watch that. Once again, thank you so much for inviting me, guys, or having me. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having
Thank
us
you.
on your interview.